Okay, so today's lesson is 5.2, radical equations. And today we're going to be focusing on simple ones. And then next lesson is more difficult ones. Okay, so let's first talk about what a radical equation is. Radical equations are equations where x is underneath the radical. Now, if you forgot what a radical is, it's like, you're probably more familiar with square root. Square root is a type of radical, okay? So radical equations are equations where x is underneath the radical. So if x is underneath this symbol, that means it's a radical equation. Today, we're going to be learning how to solve them. So in order to solve them, we must get rid of the radical, which we can do by squaring both sides. Squaring both sides. So we're going to be learning how to solve these equations, and basically the key is that we need to get rid of the square root. So we're going to do two examples. So the first example is, let's say we have the square root of 3x minus 2 equals 8, okay? Now, again, I don't know how to solve this because the x is underneath the square root. So what we need to do first is get rid of it, and we can do that by squaring both sides, because the opposite of a square root is squaring. And once you square a square root, it basically gets rid or cancels out the square root. So this is going to just become 3x minus 2. And then we know that 8 squared, right? That's just 8 times 8. That's 64. So again, in order to get the square root, you square both sides because that cancels out the square root. From here, you should know how to solve this, right? We're going to just solve this like a normal equation. So we're going to add 2 on both sides. We have 3x equals 66. Our last step is divide by 3. And we get x equals 22. Okay? We're going to do a second example. This one's going to look slightly more complicated, but it's actually the same thing. So let's say we have 4 square root of x plus 2, let's say x plus 2 plus 3 equals 19, okay? The plus 3 is not underneath the square root. When we have something like this, where on the side of the square root, we have some other things, right? We have the 4 and we have the plus 3. What we need to do first is we need to isolate the radical. So that means we want to get it by itself, okay? So we need to get this green part by itself. And the way that we can do that, I'm just going to rewrite the problem just so everything's next to each other. The way that we can isolate this radical is by getting rid of this plus 3. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3 on both sides. That's going to give me 4 square root of x plus 2 equals 16. And again, I still want this x plus 2 by itself. And this is the same thing as 4 times x plus 2. So to get rid of the 4, I'm going to divide 4 on both sides. This is going to give me x plus 2 equals, well, 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now from here, now that we have the square root by itself, I can do the same thing that I did in the last problem, right? And which is I got to get rid of the square root, which I can do so by squaring both sides. This is going to cancel out the square root. So I'm going to have x plus 2 equals, well, 4 squared is 16, right? 4 times 4 is 16. And then from here, we're just going to subtract 2, and we get x equals 14, okay? So this is how you solve simple radical equations. You are going to do part 1 of practice, and then you are going to you're going to have another video to watch.